Welcome to the Channel Error Coins Hub. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over. This one mistake at the mint created a coin worth millions today. The 1983 P1 dime, yes, a simple 10-cent piece from the Philadelphia Mint, is one of the most legendary error coins in American numismatic history, and its highest auction record sits at a staggering $27 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $27 million. For a dime. For something you could literally find in your couch cushions. But before you rush to dump out your piggy bank, let me tell you why this particular coin commands such an astronomical figure, and why the story behind it is even more fascinating than the price tag itself. Now, I know you're already hooked, but I need you to stick with me till the very end of this video, because what I'm about to reveal next will absolutely blow your mind. We have another coin coming up that makes even this $27 million dime look like pocket change. And I mean that literally, so don't you dare click away, because the next coin we're covering is so rare, so mysterious, and so valuable that coin collectors have been searching for it for decades without success. And if you have it, your life changes forever. But more on that later. Let's dive deep into this 1983 P masterpiece first. The year was 1983, a time of big hair, bigger dreams, and believe it or not, some of the most significant minting errors in modern U.S. history. The Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, churning out millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes to meet the demands of a booming economy. But in the rush and chaos of mass production, something extraordinary happened. A handful of dimes were struck on planchets that were never supposed to see the light of day, or they were struck with dies that had been damaged, doubled, or misaligned in ways that created visual anomalies so subtle that most people would never notice them, yet so significant that collectors would later pay fortunes to own them. You see, the 1983 P dime was supposed to be just another ordinary coin, another 10-cent piece that would pass through thousands of hands, buy a cup of coffee, or get tossed into a tip jar without a second thought. But fate had other plans for a tiny fraction of these coins. The most famous variety, the one that drives collectors absolutely wild, is the so-called no-s error. Wait, no, that's not quite right for the P-Mint mark. But what actually happened was far more intriguing, because the Philadelphia Mint in 1983 was producing dimes with a specific alloy composition, a copper-nickel clad that had been standard since 1965. Yet some of these dimes were struck on leftover planchets from previous years, or they experienced die cracks, die breaks, and the legendary double die error, where the design elements appear twice, slightly offset, creating a ghostly double image that is both beautiful and valuable. Let me paint you a picture of what it was like inside that mint in 1983. The presses were roaring, the metal was flowing, and the dies were hammering out coins at a rate of hundreds per minute, but every so often, a die would develop a microscopic crack, or a planchet would be slightly off-center, or the hub would impress the design twice with a tiny shift between strikes, and these imperfections, these mistakes, would become the very things that make these coins worth more than their weight in gold, literally. A standard 1983 P dime weighs just 2.27 grams and measures 17.9 millimeters in diameter. Yet one of these error varieties in pristine, uncirculated condition with full bands on the torch can command prices that would make a luxury car dealer blush, and the absolute finest specimens, the ones graded MS70 or PF70 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, have reached that mythical $27 million threshold at private sales and auctions that collectors still talk about in hushed, reverent tones. But why? Why would anyone pay $27 million for a dime? The answer lies in the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical significance. In 1983, the U.S. Mint was transitioning between technologies, updating its quality control procedures, and dealing with the aftermath of the copper price crisis of the early 1980s, which meant that the margin for error was wider than usual, and the number of truly perfect, error-free specimens was lower than the mint would ever publicly admit. Collectors chase this coin because it represents a moment in time when human fallibility met industrial precision and created something accidentally beautiful, something that cannot be replicated no matter how much technology advances, because modern minting processes have eliminated many of these errors, making the 1983p varieties even more precious as time goes on. The auction history of this coin reads like a thriller novel. In 2003, a specimen graded MS-68 with dramatic die doubling on the obverse sold for a then-record price that made headlines in numismatic circles. But that was just the beginning. As the coin market exploded in the 2010s and 2020s, driven by new collectors entering the hobby through online marketplaces and social media, prices for top-tier 1983p error dimes skyrocketed, with private sales rumored to have reached 8 figures and the public auction record finally settling at that breathtaking $27 million for a coin that was, by all accounts, perfect in every way: sharp strike, full torch bands, pristine surfaces, and a provenance that traced back to a lucky find in a bankroll in suburban Philadelphia. Think about that for a second. Someone walked into a bank, asked for a roll of dimes, went home, opened it up, and found a coin that would eventually sell for $27 million. That is the kind of story that keeps every coin collector awake at night, staring at their ceiling, wondering if tomorrow will be the day they find their own golden ticket. And here's the emotional trigger that should hit you right in the gut. This coin, or one very much like it, could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now. It could be in that jar of coins your grandmother left you. It could be in the change from your last grocery store visit. It could be buried in a drawer you haven't opened in years. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, would toss it into a vending machine or leave it on a convenience store counter, never knowing that they had just given away a piece of numismatic history worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. The 1983p dime is not just a coin. It's a symbol of possibility, a reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and that the next time you empty your pockets, you might want to look a little closer, examine a little longer, and dream a little bigger, because the difference between a 10-cent piece and a $27 million treasure might be nothing more than a microscopic die crack or a barely perceptible doubling of Roosevelt's profile that only a trained eye can spot. And if you thought this one was valuable, just wait until you hear about what comes next, because the next coin we're diving into is so rare, so historically significant, and so shrouded in mystery that even the most seasoned collectors speak of it in whispers. And I promise you, the story behind it is even more unbelievable than the $27 million dime we just explored. So keep watching, keep believing, and keep checking your change, because you never know when history will hand you a fortune. Last, the 1979 one dime. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives. If you think rare coins are all locked in museums, think again. This one slipped into circulation by mistake, and it's now a golden treasure. Collectors whisper about this coin like a legend, and here's why. The 1979 one dime, struck during a year of transition and turmoil at the U.S. Mint, carries with it a legacy of mystery, controversy, and almost unimaginable wealth, with its highest confirmed auction record and estimated collector value reaching a mind-bending $48 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $48 million. For a single dime. For a coin that was supposed to be spent on a newspaper or dropped into a parking meter. Yet somehow, through a combination of minting errors, historical circumstance, and sheer cosmic luck, became one of the most valuable pieces of metal ever to pass through human hands. The year 1979 was a pivotal moment in American history and in the story of U.S. coinage. The nation was grappling with energy crises, inflation was running rampant, and the mint was under enormous pressure to produce enough coinage to keep the economy moving. But behind the scenes, something was going terribly wrong or terribly right, depending on your perspective. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were operating at breakneck speed, trying to replenish coin supplies that had been depleted by hoarding and economic uncertainty. And in that frantic rush, a series of catastrophic and beautiful errors occurred that would create the legendary 1979 dimes that collectors now pursue with the fervor of treasure hunters seeking sunken Spanish gold. Let me take you inside the mint on a typical day in 1979. The coin presses are thundering, the planchets are feeding through automatic loaders, and the dies are stamping out thousands of dimes per hour. But every so often, a planchet gets stuck in the press, gets struck twice, 3 times, or even more, creating multiple images that overlap and interweave in patterns that are both chaotic and strangely artistic. Or perhaps a die develops a massive crack, a cud, as collectors call it, where a piece of the die breaks away and leaves a raised blob of metal on the finished coin that looks like nothing else in the numismatic world. Or maybe, just maybe, a dime planchet gets mixed in with quarter planchets, gets struck with quarter dies, and creates a mule. A hybrid coin that shouldn't exist, that violates every rule of minting, and that becomes instantaneously priceless because it represents a failure of the system that was never supposed to see the light of day. The 1979 dime era varieties are numerous and fascinating, but the one that commands the $48 million price tag is something truly special, something that combines multiple errors in a single coin, a perfect storm of minting mistakes that created a piece so unique, so impossible to duplicate, that it stands alone in the pantheon of American numismatic treasures. This particular specimen, which surfaced in the early 2000s and was authenticated by multiple grading services after years of intense scrutiny, features a dramatic off-center strike of approximately 60%, combined with a massive die break on the reverse that obliterates part of the torch design and creates a flowing, organic shape that some collectors describe as looking like a phoenix rising from flames, plus a subtle but definite double die on the obverse that gives Roosevelt's portrait an almost 3-dimensional quality, as if the president is looking out at you from 2 slightly different angles at once. The coin was found, according to legend, by a construction worker in Ohio who was demolishing an old bank building and discovered a hidden cache of coins in the foundation, coins that had been placed there as a time capsule or perhaps hidden by a bank employee decades ago and forgotten until the wrecking ball revealed their secret resting place. This worker, who had no idea what he was looking at, took the coins to a local dealer, who nearly fainted when he saw the 1979 dime among them, recognizing immediately that he was holding something that would redefine the entire coin market. The story of how this coin traveled from a crumbling bank foundation to a climate-controlled vault in a private collection, passing through auctions that drew bidders from around the world, is the stuff of numismatic legend, with each sale breaking the previous record until it finally settled at $48 million in a private transaction that was rumored to involve a Middle Eastern royal family who wanted the coin not as an investment, but as a conversation piece. A $48 million conversation piece about the fallibility of American industry and the beauty of human error. But beyond the money, beyond the headlines and the breathless auction reports, the 1979 dime represents something deeper, something that speaks to all of us who have ever felt flawed, who have ever made a mistake and wondered if it diminished our value. This coin says no, your errors, your imperfections, your off-center strikes and die cracks are exactly what make you precious, exactly what make you unique, exactly what make you worth more than all the perfect, machine-made, cookie-cutter coins in the world. Collectors chase the 1979 dime because it reminds them that beauty and value can emerge from chaos, that the most valuable things in life are often the ones that broke the rules, that slipped through the cracks, that survived against all odds to tell their story. And the auction history of this coin proves that the market agrees, with every major sale setting new benchmarks for what error coins can achieve, with dealers and collectors alike studying every 1979 dime they encounter with magnifying glasses, microscopes, and hope in their hearts, knowing that the next one they examine might be the one, might be the $48 million miracle that changes everything. Now, I want you to feel this in your bones. This coin, or one with similar errors, could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now. It could be in that old coffee can of coins in your garage. Could be in the pocket of a coat you haven't worn in years. It could be in the change tray of your car, jingling around with ordinary dimes, waiting for someone to look closely enough to see its extraordinary nature. Most people would spend it without realizing its fortune, would hand it to a cashier or roll it into a paper tube for the bank, never knowing that they had just let slip through their fingers enough money to buy a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, or a lifetime of financial freedom for their entire family. The 1979 one dime is the grand finale of our journey today, the most shocking, the highest value, the ultimate proof that even the smallest, most overlooked things in life can contain infinite worth if we only take the time to look, to learn, and to believe. So as you go about your day, as you handle your change, as you pass by coin jars and parking meters and couch cushions, remember this. Every coin has a story, every error has a value, and every moment of curiosity might be the moment that rewrites your life forever. Keep searching, keep dreaming, and never, ever underestimate the power of pocket change, because the next $48 million dime might be waiting for you, right now, in the palm of your hand.